Have you ever looked at a broken place and seen a future that no one else could imagine? This is the story of a young architect who wasn't remembered for building the tallest skyscraper. She was remembered because she gave hope a home. Her name was Sophia Carter. Ever since she was a little girl, she didn't just admire beautiful buildings, she wondered how they could make people's lives better. While others saw walls, Sophia saw possibilities. By the time she graduated, Sophia carried more than a degree. She carried hundreds of sketches, thousands of dreams, and one quiet promise to herself. One day, I'll build something that truly changes lives. She had no idea that promise would soon be tested. The morning after graduation, Sophia walked into her first architecture firm with confidence. She had prepared for years. She believed this was the beginning of her dream. But sometimes, life tests your belief before it rewards your effort. The interview lasted less than 15 minutes. The manager looked at Sophia's portfolio, then quietly closed it. Your designs are impressive, but we're looking for someone with experience. Those words echoed in her mind as she walked back outside. One interview became 3, 3 became 10. Every office had a different door, but the same answer. We're sorry, we can't hire you. With every rejection, Sophia's confidence grew a little quieter. Weeks turned into months. Her savings slowly disappeared. To pay her rent, Sophia accepted small freelance jobs, drawing simple house plans, while the dream she had carried for years seemed farther away than ever. Yet every night, she still opened her sketchbook, because a small part of her refused to stop believing. Then, on an ordinary Tuesday morning, her phone rang. It wasn't a famous architecture firm. It wasn't a wealthy client. It was the city's community development office. Ms. Carter, we've seen your portfolio. There's one project no one wants. If you're willing, we'd like you to see it. Sophia didn't know it yet, but this single phone call was about to change her life forever. The next morning, Sophia followed the address she had been given. As she drove farther from the city, the roads grew quieter. Finally, she stopped in front of an old iron gate covered with rust. Behind it stood a forgotten orphanage. Broken windows, cracked walls, and years of silence. Most people saw a building ready to collapse. Sophia saw a story waiting to be rewritten. As Sophia slowly pushed the heavy gate open, it let out a long, haunting creak. Dust drifted through the air. The playground was empty. The walls were scarred by time. Yet somehow, the place didn't feel abandoned. Felt like it was waiting for someone who still believed it could be saved. Inside, every room whispered a forgotten memory. Faded drawings still clung to the walls. Tiny wooden beds sat beneath a blanket of dust. It was as if time had stopped, the day the last child walked away. As Sophia looked around, her heart grew heavy. This wasn't just an old building. It had once been a home. As she walked toward the old office, something caught her attention. A dusty wooden cabinet, hidden beneath years of neglect. Curious, Sophia brushed away the thick layer of dust and slowly opened the creaking drawer. Inside, she found a rolled-up set of blueprints, bound together with a faded blue ribbon. On top rested a small handwritten note. With trembling hands, she unfolded it. The first sentence made her stop breathing. The note read, "To the architect who finds these blueprints, if you are standing here today, it means I couldn't finish what I started. People will tell you this place isn't worth saving. Don't listen to them. Every child deserves a place where hope can grow." Sophia read every word. Her eyes filled with tears. It felt as if the man who designed this orphanage was speaking directly to her. Beneath the letter, Sophia unfolded the original blueprints. Every line had been drawn with incredible care. But in one corner, she noticed something unusual. A sentence, written in red ink, as if the architect wanted no one to miss it. It said, Believe in yourself, because every masterpiece begins as a drawing that no one else understands. In that moment, Sophia realized she hadn't come here by accident. She had come here for a reason. The next morning, Sophia walked into City Hall carrying the old blueprints. She was ready to save the orphanage. But before she could even begin, a wealthy property developer stood up. With a confident smile, he pointed at the building and said, "Why waste millions repairing a ruin? Demolish it, and I'll build luxury apartments instead." The room fell silent. For the first time, Sophia realized saving the orphanage wouldn't just require architectural skill. It would require courage. Sophia took a slow, steady breath, then stood up. Her hands trembled, but her voice did not. "You're looking at broken walls," she said. "I'm looking at the children who will one day call this place home. Buildings can be rebuilt, but hope, once destroyed, is much harder to restore." The room became completely silent. For the first time, everyone listened. The council thanked Sophia, but there was one problem. The city couldn't afford the restoration. The project was officially rejected. As she packed her blueprints, a city official quietly whispered, "I'm sorry. We wanted to help." Sophia lowered her head. For a moment, felt like her dream was slipping away again. Sophia walked out of City Hall, holding the old blueprints tighter than ever. She could have gone home. She could have accepted defeat. Instead, she looked back at the orphanage one more time and made herself a promise. "If no one believes this place can be saved, then I'll be the first." Because every great journey begins when one person chooses to believe, even if they stand alone. The very next morning, Sophia returned to the orphanage. Not with a construction crew, not with heavy machinery, just a pair of work gloves, a broom. Sometimes, the biggest dreams begin with the smallest actions. Hour after hour, Sophia worked alone. She swept away years of dust, picked up broken glass, moved rotting furniture, and uncovered floors no one had seen in decades. People passing by slowed their cars, looked at her, shook their heads, and drove away. To them, she was wasting her time. But Sophia had already learned something important. You don't need everyone's belief. You only need your own. On the third day, as Sophia pulled an old bookshelf away from the wall, she discovered a hidden wooden door. Its rusty lock had almost disappeared beneath years of dust. With a gentle push, the door slowly opened. Inside was a small workshop, covered in cobwebs, filled with handmade architectural models, tools, and shelves of carefully rolled blueprints. It was the original architect's private studio, untouched for decades. Sophia carefully stepped inside. Every shelf told a story. Every blueprint carried a dream. Then, she noticed an old leather journal lying on the drafting table. Its pages were worn, its cover faded by time. She gently opened it. The very first page read, "Architecture is not about building walls. It's about building a future for the people who live between them." Sophia smiled. For the first time in months, she didn't feel alone anymore. Sophia turned the next page. It wasn't another blueprint. It was a handwritten letter, addressed to the architect who refuses to give up. She took a deep breath and began to read. "If this building is still standing, then hope is still standing. People will measure your success by the buildings you complete, but your true success will be measured by the lives you change." Those words echoed deep within her heart. For the first time, Sophia understood. This project wasn't changing the orphanage. It was changing her. The next page revealed something unexpected. It wasn't a drawing. It wasn't a letter. It was a list of names, hundreds of them. Every child who had once lived in the orphanage, carefully written by hand. Next to each name, the original architect had written a single dream. Teacher, doctor, musician, pilot, scientist. Sophia gently traced the names with her fingertips. She whispered, "This wasn't just a building. It was a place where dreams were born." In that moment, saving the orphanage was no longer just a project. It became her mission. The following morning, Sophia pinned the old blueprints beside her own designs. She studied every measurement, every note, every forgotten idea. Then she picked up her pencil and carefully drew the first new line. She wasn't changing the architect's dream. She was continuing it. For the first time, the abandoned orphanage had a future. But dreams need more than determination. They need resources. Sophia calculated the cost of restoring the orphanage. Her smile slowly disappeared. The total came to more money than she could earn in years. For a brief moment, doubt returned. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe this really is impossible. Then, her eyes fell once more on the old journal. One sentence seemed to stand out. The moment you stop believing in yourself is the moment your dream begins to disappear. Sophia closed the journal and quietly smiled. Then I won't stop believing. The next day, Sophia made a decision. If she couldn't find the money, she would find the people. She printed her renovation plans, packed the old blueprints, and knocked on the first door. Some people politely said no. Others didn't even open the door. A few laughed. One person can't save a place like that. Sophia thanked them anyway and walked to the next house, because every no brought her one step closer to a yes. Late that afternoon, Sophia arrived at one final house. An elderly man opened the door. He looked at the blueprints, then quietly asked, "Why are you fighting so hard for a building everyone else has forgotten?" Sophia smiled gently. "Because I know what it's like to have people stop believing in you." The old man remained silent. Then he looked toward the orphanage in the distance. His eyes slowly filled with memories. The old man slowly folded Sophia's blueprints, then disappeared inside his house. For a moment, Sophia thought she had failed again. A few seconds later, he returned carrying an old wooden box. Inside were faded photographs, newspaper clippings, and a small brass key. With trembling hands, he placed the key in Sophia's palm. 40 years ago, he whispered, "I was one of the children who grew up in that orphanage. That building gave me a future. Now it's my turn to help give it one again." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. For the first time, she realized she wasn't fighting this battle alone anymore. The next morning, the old man unlocked the orphanage's forgotten storage room. The heavy wooden door creaked open. Inside, Sophia couldn't believe what she saw. Stacks of original construction records, boxes of preserved architectural drawings, and shelves filled with tools that had belonged to the orphanage's first architect. Then, the old man smiled and said, "I've been waiting years for someone who believed enough to use them." For the first time, Sophia realized hope has a remarkable way of finding those who refuse to give up. Thomas carefully opened the old wooden box. Inside, there wasn't any money. There weren't any jewels. There were letters. Hundreds of them. Letters written by children who had once called this orphanage home. One by one, Sophia began to read. Every page carried the same message. "Thank you for believing in me." Tears rolled down her face. She finally understood. This building had never been made of bricks alone. It had always been built with love. Thomas picked up one of the oldest letters. His paper had turned yellow with age. He smiled softly. "This one was mine," he said. Sophia looked at him in surprise. Thomas unfolded the letter and began to read. "Dear Mr. Jonathan, thank you for teaching me that where I come from doesn't decide where I'll go. One day, I'll make you proud." Thomas paused. His voice trembled. "The man who designed this orphanage didn't just build these walls. He built me." Sophia stood in silence, realizing that one person's belief can change another person's entire future. Thomas slowly closed the letter, then walked toward a dusty wall. He pointed to an old photograph, faded by time. Dozens of smiling children stood in front of the orphanage. In the center was a young man wearing a construction helmet. "That's Jonathan," Thomas whispered, "the architect who built this place. He didn't become famous. He became unforgettable." Sophia stared at the photograph. For the first time, she wasn't just restoring a building, she was carrying forward a legacy. Before leaving the workshop, Thomas handed Sophia one final envelope. Unlike the others, it had never been opened. Across the front, in neat handwriting, were the words, "To the architect who finishes what I could not." Sophia's hands trembled. She carefully broke the old wax seal and unfolded the letter. Inside, there was only one sentence. "Don't build this orphanage to be admired. Build it so every child who enters believes they matter." Sophia closed her eyes. A quiet tear rolled down her cheek. At that moment, she made a promise. No matter how long it took, she would finish Jonathan's dream. The very next morning, Sophia carried Jonathan's letter in her backpack, not as a memory, but as a promise. She walked through the orphanage, room by room, making notes, measuring every cracked wall, every broken window, every weakened beam. Then she spread the blueprints across the old dining hall floor, picked up her pencil, and began drawing. Not how to rebuild the building, but how to rebuild the lives it would one day protect. Outside, a curious little girl stopped at the broken gate. She quietly watched Sophia working, then asked, "Will children really live here again?" Sophia looked up, smiled warmly, and answered, "Yes, one day they will." The little girl's question stayed with Sophia all day. Will children really live here again? She looked around the empty halls and answered herself, "Not if I keep waiting for someone else." That evening, Sophia took a deep breath, opened her laptop, and shared the orphanage's story with the world. She posted photographs, Jonathan's blueprints, and one simple message: "I don't need everyone to believe. I only need a few people who believe that every child deserves a home." Then she pressed publish and waited. The first hour, nothing happened. No messages, no phone calls, no donations. Sophia stared at the screen, wondering if anyone had even seen her story. Then, a single notification appeared. Donation received. It wasn't a large amount, but it came with a message. "I grew up in an orphanage too. Thank you for not giving up." Sophia smiled. Sometimes, hope doesn't arrive as a crowd. Sometimes, it arrives as one person. By the next morning, that one donation had become 10. 10 became 50. Messages began arriving from every corner of the country. "I can paint. I'm an electrician. I'll donate building materials. I'll volunteer this weekend." Sophia stared at the screen, overwhelmed. She had spent months believing she was fighting alone. She wasn't. To believe in the same dream. Saturday morning, the orphanage was no longer silent. The sound of hammers echoed through the halls. Paintbrushes covered cracked walls with fresh color. Electricians repaired old wiring. Carpenters rebuilt broken doors. Neighbors served food and water to every volunteer. Sophia stood in the middle of it all, unable to believe her eyes. The place everyone had abandoned was alive again. She finally understood. One person who believes in themselves can inspire hundreds of others to believe too. Just as hope began to shine, a black luxury car pulled up outside. The wealthy developer stepped out. He looked at the growing crowd, then smiled. Not because he was happy, but because he had another plan. He walked straight toward Sophia, holding a thick envelope. "Miss Carter," he said, "stop this project, and the money inside is yours." The volunteers fell silent. Thomas looked at Sophia. This wasn't just an offer, it was a test. The developer slowly opened the envelope. Inside was a contract and a check worth more money than Sophia had ever seen. "Take it," he said calmly. "Walk away today, and you'll never have to worry about money again." Sophia looked at the check, then at the children in the old photographs, then at Jonathan's letter. She knew. This wasn't a decision between success and failure. It was a decision between comfort and purpose. Without saying a word, Sophia folded the contract and gently placed it back into the developer's hands. Then she smiled. "You think this orphanage is just land? I see a future. You offered me money, but this place has already given me something far more valuable. It taught me to believe in myself." The developer's smile disappeared. For the first time, he realized some people could never be bought. The volunteers broke into applause. Thomas quietly smiled because he knew Jonathan's dream was alive once again. The developer walked away, but he wasn't finished. The very next morning, a red notice appeared on the orphanage gate. Construction stopped. Safety inspection ordered. The volunteers stood in disbelief. Some quietly packed their tools. Others feared months of work would be lost. The orphanage fell silent once again. Sophia stared at the notice. For a brief moment, fear returned. But then, she remembered Jonathan's words. Every masterpiece is tested before it's completed. She slowly removed the notice from the gate, looked at every volunteer, and smiled. "We're not stopping today. We'll prove this building is worth saving." 2 days later, the city inspectors arrived. Every volunteer stepped aside. The entire orphanage stood silent, waiting for a single decision. The lead inspector walked through every room, examined every beam, every foundation, every repair. Hours passed. No one spoke. Finally, he closed his notebook, turned toward Sophia, and smiled. "Miss Carter, whoever designed these restoration plans understands this building better than anyone. The project is approved." For a moment, nobody moved. Then, cheers echoed through the orphanage. Hope had won another battle. With the approval finally secured, the real work began. Day after day, week after week, the orphanage slowly came back to life. Broken windows were replaced. New classrooms took shape. Fresh gardens bloomed where weeds had once grown. Every nail that was hammered, every brick that was laid, reminded Sophia of one simple truth. Great things are never built in a single day. They are built one step, one choice, one act of faith at a time. One afternoon, as the final classroom was being painted, a small school bus stopped outside the gate. The volunteers paused. The doors slowly opened. A group of orphan children stepped out, holding each other's hands. They looked at the building with uncertainty. Sophia walked toward them, knelt to their level, and smiled warmly. "Welcome home." In that single moment, every sleepless night, every rejection, became worth it. As the children explored their new home, laughter echoed through the halls once again. The empty playground came alive. Classrooms filled with smiles. The library welcomed its very first readers. Sophia stood quietly in the courtyard, watching every joyful moment. Thomas walked beside her and gently said, "Jonathan dreamed of building an orphanage. You built something even greater." Sophia looked at the children playing, then softly replied, "No. I simply believed in a dream until others believed in it too." A few weeks later, the city held a special ceremony. Reporters, architects, teachers, and hundreds of families gathered outside the orphanage. The mayor stepped onto the stage, holding a small bronze plaque. He smiled at Sophia and said, "Today, we are not honoring a building. We are honoring the woman who reminded this city that hope is always worth rebuilding." The crowd rose to their feet. Their applause echoed through the valley. But Sophia wasn't looking at the stage. She was looking at the children, because they were the greatest reward she could ever receive. As the ceremony came to an end, Thomas quietly walked toward the entrance. In his hands, he carried Jonathan's old brass nameplate. His letters had faded, but its meaning never had. Together, Thomas and Sophia carefully mounted it above the orphanage's front door. Beneath it read. Sophia stepped back, smiled, and whispered. A gentle breeze passed through the courtyard, as if the old architect himself had heard every word. Years later, the orphanage stood stronger than ever. Its halls were no longer filled with silence, but with laughter, learning, and endless possibilities. Became teachers, doctors, engineers, artists, and even architects. Every one of them carried a piece of Sophia's courage into the world. One evening, Sophia stood quietly outside the orphanage. She looked at the building she had once found in ruins. Then she smiled, because she finally understood. The greatest architect doesn't just design buildings. The greatest architect designs lives. And the greatest blueprint is believing in yourself, even when no one else does. Believe in yourself, because the life you build will always become your greatest masterpiece. Believe in yourself, because the strongest foundations are built with courage. The greatest dreams are built with faith. And the most beautiful life is the one you never gave up on building. Never stop believing in yourself. Before you leave, take a moment to ask yourself, what dream have you stopped believing in? Is there a goal, passion, or a purpose you've buried because someone told you it was impossible? Remember Sophia. She didn't wait for perfect conditions. She didn't wait for everyone to support her. She simply chose to believe in herself. And that single decision changed hundreds of lives. Maybe today, your greatest design isn't a building. Maybe it's the life you're building right now. If the story inspired you, like this video, comment below, "I believe in myself." Subscribe to Glowing Flame for more inspiring stories that ignite courage, hope, and purpose. Because every masterpiece begins with one brave decision: to believe in yourself.